Welcome to the Octopod. I'm Kyle Davis, head of the Office of the CTO. Join us as we dive into the latest technologies and trends shaping business. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business leader, or just looking to stay ahead in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Let's unlock opportunities with technology together. Let's jump in.
Hi everyone, here we are now for part two with my chat with Michael Cade, field CTO from Veeam. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself again to everyone?
Yeah, hey everyone. So I'm Michael Cade, field CTO at Veeam. I've been here just coming up 11 years, and I've seen a few things as we've gone through the virtual machine and broadening that platform. So yeah, excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, and the next evolution of the journey, effectively, we're talking about here, aren't we? So yeah, so for those just tuning in, this is part two. In part one, we talked through the trends, the demands, the things impacting the world of data and cyber resilience into 2026. And in this part, as teased at the end of the last one, is, well, actually, a lot of this conversation is about data, but also why did Veeam buy a company called Security.AI? Because that feels like it's not a backup company purchase. But Michael, maybe you can give us a view on what were Veeam seeing in the market and what drove this desire to go find a company like Security.AI. And then maybe we can dive in a little bit about, well, who are they, what do they do, and how do they complement the Veeam story, as it were?
Yeah. It's a big 1.74 billion question there, Rob, as well. I think firstly, every single customer is challenged with the amount of data that they have, not understanding what that data is, potentially hoarding stuff. I said in the last episode about we're only human and we tend to keep hold of everything. We hoard everything, a bit like my garage at home. I keep everything. I move it from house to house. One of the key aspects that we were hearing over the last couple of years actually was getting a grasp on what our data is, sensitivity of that data, classifying that data, just being generally more hygienic with that data. ROP data was a big thing. Just so happens we're going through a supply chain situation at the moment. I'm sure it won't be the first, it definitely isn't the first, it won't be the last. So, and that's going to encroach on our storage and our physical hardware that we have. So being able to help reduce our storage spend or being more optimized from a cost perspective is only a good thing. But ultimately, we were hearing a lot about how can we help our customers understand their data first and foremost, provide insight into sensitivity of that data, and then the rest is we'll get into. But ultimately, it's about starting with that production data, being able to help you understand that data is the real first hurdle that we wanted to get over.
So it's really around that sort of data security posture management part of the market. And actually, although the company is called Security.AI, actually AI is the end goal of what we do with this, but really it's about data management, data classification, data understanding, and being able to get insights and usable construct out of that data effectively as a very broad overview before we get into the detail.
Yeah, so the .ai, everyone it seems to be getting a .ai domain, and there is elements of AI, and we'll get into that in regards to by having clean data, it means now we can use that data safely, securely with LLMs, with AI. But yeah, to your point, Rob, like there's the understanding of that data, and that's really the DSPM part. And I've been calling it Security.AI is more like DSPM plus, and they actually started as a privacy and GRC type offering. So privacy, governance, regulation, compliance, or privacy ops is the cool term because everything has to have something like ops on the end of it. But combining them together, they have this command graph that gives you a social network of all of your data, how it moves from one place, one platform, one data system to another, who has access to that. So you get to see the flow of that, which is great in general. Like I want to be able to understand if some user has more access than they should, so they'll get insight into that. Where it also comes real handy, we spoke about trends on the last episode about cybersecurity and cyber threats, is how can we work backwards in the data flow to understand when bad things have happened to that data? Was it because Jane in HR or Jane in sales or Tom in finance shared a file either via an LLM or more likely emailed it out of the business, and that potentially started a chain effect of malicious activity within the business, and they might be completely innocent to that, but this will give you that flow of data, so you've got some sort of breach impact analysis against that data set. So yes, it's DSPM. If you look at the analyst reports, they're top right in all of the corners. Top right is good, by the way. From a Veeam point of view, we couldn't just go and buy a small player and expect our existing customers to trust that story would fit. We had to go out and buy the top DSPM vendor that would allow us to expand what we do when it comes to data.
That makes sense. So understand your data, classify your data, reduce your data so that we're only keeping what we need, helps with the cost challenges that are coming this year, storage refreshes, that sort of stuff. As sort of almost quadrant one of the capabilities of the product from that side of it. So that is step one. What comes next, though, from the journey of data, of how we then sort of integrate all this together?
Yeah, so then if we think about security, like I mentioned, around the flow of that data, who has access to that data, the breach impact analysis, but then you couple that with what we're doing from a data resilience perspective in terms of protecting that data. But now we understand what our mission critical, most important gold tier type data is. We can protect that and be more resilient and know where that data is being stored so that when bad things happen, we can restore that as fast as possible. But the security is about understanding where that data goes, also how we protect it. It's also where Veeam traditionally, or at least for the last couple of years, we've had that integration with the likes of CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, you name a household brand. And from a security point of view, we're probably integrating into their XDR, EDR, SIEM, SOAR solution to give them insight so that they can send us some smoke signals when bad things happen. So yeah, we're getting around to understand the security. Then from a resilience point of view, it's sitting on data systems platform somewhere. Again, we mentioned in the first, like as I said at the start as well, Veeam started off as VMware VM backup, and I think we're shaking that off now. It's not just VM backup. We support SaaS-based workloads, cloud-based workloads, Kubernetes. Like if there's data there, we probably protect it in some form, and it's about completing that circle round. So we've got understand, we've got secure that data, and now it's about protecting or being resilient with that data.
And when we say data, just to use the word data quite generically, there's a lot of platforms in this space generally. Some work well with one type of data, maybe file data, or some work well with structured, some work with cloud data, some work with SaaS application data. From a Security.AI purchase perspective, what data is in scope of the word data, as it were? What is on the truck as far as its capability?
Yeah, so there's two aspects to Security.AI that got me interested as a technologist, but also from a use case and a problem-solving experience. One is the connector graph, which is the social network of your data, understanding what's connected to each other. And the second is the connector framework. So the connector framework allows us to plug into these data systems. Again, I'll use that generically, but data systems can be structured. So it could be your SQL database, NoSQL database, could be your Databricks, it could be Snowflake, it could be any structured data. It can equally be any unstructured data. And you're going to be able to tie that map between that social network will provide the ability to see data between the two data sets, semi-structured as well. And that's a massive differentiator here, because a lot of DSPM tools will only completely focus on unstructured NAS, NFS on-prem, or they'll look at M365, for example, data within that using Purview and additional APIs within Microsoft's ecosystem. So yeah, there's two key elements to it. One is the connector framework that allows us to authenticate and connect into the data system, regardless of what that may be. And then this social network, this command graph, which is where all of that information, all of the metadata of those findings are stored and correlate a map of that data.
Cool. So fundamentally, we've got a platform that can discover data in pretty much any location that data might be, from on-prem to cloud to SaaS. So we don't leave any data out, assuming you want to connect it in. We're taking metadata only, so
Yep.
we're not worrying about sovereignty of the actual data, which is good. We're providing lots of valuable insights from an infrastructure and operations perspective on that data, i.e. rot and classification, etc., feeding that into our backup and our security policies. But it sort of feels to me that there's a business angle here then. If I've got a lake, effectively, of metadata about all of my data, and I know how it's all connected, so I know that what's happening in SharePoint is connected to Oracle, that's connected to SQL, that's connected to Salesforce, that's connected to my NetApp filer, there's got to be some business intelligence we can start to pull out of that, from a sort of enterprise search perspective.
Yeah, if any of you are familiar with Veeam already, we've always spoken about leveraging data, or you might have seen the marketing term unleash that data. And that's about taking the backup data and exposing that out into a sandbox environment, and you as an admin or you as a practitioner would be able to gain access to this system and get something out of it. We never gave you the get something out of it. You would have to bring the tool to do that. Where Security.AI comes in is extending that capability, because now you've got good, clean, hygienic data. You've cleared off all of the garbage, as you might have heard, garbage in, garbage out from an AI perspective. And now we've understood it, we've classified it, we know what's sensitive. Now I want to use that data. Maybe I do want to use that data from an AI perspective. Maybe I want to just gain some insights out of that. Maybe I want to plug it into a different tool that gives me insight out of that. But now I know, because I've got the foundation of good hygiene from a data perspective and understand that, it means I've got use cases in terms of AI, being able to build all of that data map into, say, Copilot, and be able to then take advantage of that, query that, be able to take your golden data, that is your data, that isn't in a large language model, and be able to query that and get some information, insight out of that data itself from all of these different data sources and data sites.
And I guess some level of governance around that as well can be applied at the platform level, because we understand the data, understand the context. We could start to control what data is made available to different systems to put a bit more sort of control and governance around things.
Yeah, exactly that. So if we know what's sensitive, we know who's got access to it. But equally, we've dynamically discovered these AI systems and AI models that have either been created purposely by the business or potentially shadow AI, shadow IT. This gives us the ability to see where that flow of data is and where it's going, and we can stop it at that point, so that it's not going out the door, as it were.
That makes sense. And I guess as a closing sort of gambit, then I guess we've got Veeam as that sort of backup company. Let's protect your data and ensure that you can recover in the event of the worst. We've got Security.AI now that gives you the insights and the governance and the control over the data. Do we see it as a sort of thing, is integration plan then between the two products, as in to start to allow them to communicate with each other and sort of add incremental value for customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So already from a Q1 2026 perspective, we will have the ability to bolt this on to M365 data. So all of your mail, your Exchange, your SharePoint, your OneDrive data, and be able to get a map of that. Also within the Veeam Data Cloud, we'll have the ability to run Security.AI inside of VDC. And there's obviously more plans around the connector framework. Imagine what we can do with that, as well as this graph. How could we help our customers be more knowledgeable about what their data is doing or for them, and actually use it as an asset rather than just dumping it somewhere and using it for the primary use case, but why not get more insight out of that?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It sounds like an exciting year ahead, or 2-3 years ahead, to be fair. And I assume you this won't be the last acquisition we see. So I think it's great to see that sort of widening of the Veeam portfolio. You said you've shed the VMware backup only mantra. We're probably in that sort of you're a data protection company, but I think it feels like that evolution now to actually Veeam as a data management company that's broader than just backup. Especially when you see Security.AI and the traditional Veeam portfolios coming together, it's quite an exciting future. It must be for yourself as a technologist who's had the the 11 years of the history to now, the future must feel just as exciting for you.
Yeah, massively exciting. Like, yeah, to get hands on with new tech and actually to be playing with the production data, not just lifting and shifting it from A to B, to be connected into these new systems and things like Databricks and Snowflake, and being able to have an understanding of those data systems is exciting from a technologist point of view. But yeah, very exciting overall for Veeam.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for listening, but I think it's an exciting time ahead, and I'm sure we'll revisit this later in the year and see where you've got to with it. Everyone keep your ears to the news feeds, really, from that side of it. And if you want to hear more, give us a shout. But for now, I've been Rob Sims, Chief Technologist at CDW.
And I've been Michael Cade, Field CTO at Veeam Software.
Excellent. Thanks, and thanks everyone for listening.
For more great insights. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, feel free to reach out. Catch you next time.